Welcome back to Rich Dad Stockcast. I'm your host, Denney, and today we're talking about something most investors never think about: what happens during summer. Now, summer is when people slow down, they're taking vacations, spending time at the lake, traveling with family, and in many cases, paying less attention to their investments. But smart investors know something important. Just because Wall Street gets a little quieter doesn't mean that opportunity disappears. In fact, some investors use the summer months to prepare, to reposition, to educate themselves, and really set themselves up for the rest of the year. So today we're talking about what smart investors do while everyone else is on vacation. And joining me, as always, is Rich Dad expert Andy Tanner. And before we dive in, make sure you go to stockcastbonus.com, grab your free investing tools. If you want to spend less time guessing and more time investing intelligently, that's where you start. Andy, welcome back.
Del, great topic. Great to be with you, and we'll certainly have a couple of things to say about the summer.
First off, I'm so happy summer's here. I'm tired of those winter months. But before we get into it, our heart of our discussion, Stockcast Bonus, amazing things in there. We're always updating. What do our listeners receive when they go there?
You know, you mentioned we're always updating. Boy, we got that thing power packed right now. There is education, there's webinars, there's downloads, there's trading journals. We've got tools. There's ebooks that no charge for any of it, and so there's lots of great stuff with your name on it. Head over there, get your tools, see what there is best for you, and it's a great place to take action. I seem like I say it every time we talk, but we're a content consuming world now, and so people consume a lot of content because of how it makes them feel. But I will tell you, there's a huge opportunity for the person that says, all right, everybody's watching content. I'm actually going to do stuff. So I'm going to partner with people. We're going to get things done. We're going to, buy real estate. We're going to click our mouse, buy the stock, all that stuff. So, drop by stockcastbonus.com.
There we go. I love it. I know. I did see. I'm in both boats, or watching content and understanding action. But I heard someone say not just take action, but massive action. I'd like that term. That take massive
radical
action. I think that's cool. All right, so let's get into the heart of our topic. Summer. What makes summer months different from the rest of the investing year? Let's just start with the basics.
Yeah, I mean, it's less. Well, in the book, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett's mentor, he begins right out of the gate and saying, look, let's separate our investing activities, our ownership activities from our trading and our speculation activities. He says both can be done. He said this book will be on investing, and there's other books on trading. So the summer is more for the person who is very active in trading. It's really, really important because some people need to do that. They're behind. We're going to have a topic, in a later discussion, another podcast about how to catch up. And so, I prefer to hold my real estate. Other people say, no, I got to flip it and make 20 grand. I can't wait a whole year, at $2,000 a month to do that. I got to flip this quick. So for the summer months, it's going to be about sector rotation. It's going to be about watching how money tends to move and when the harvest comes in, so to speak. So I'll give a couple of analogies, and then we can talk a little bit about some of those sectors that rotate.
Perfect. Yeah, let's start with some analogies. Let's kick it off. I'm kind of curious.
Well, my favorite analogy is Alaska because up there's a big fishing industry, particularly the salmon. My wife and I and my two boys, we took a trip. It was on my father-in-law's bucket list, and he was getting a little older, and we said, hey, this might be the last trip, and it was. And so we took him salmon fishing in Alaska. Well, that's seasonal, isn't it? And so those fishermen, up there, they have this massive paycheck, in 1 month of the year, and then that's got to last them the next 12 months. So seasonality is a big deal. If you watch the old movie with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, Trading Places, everything hinges around the orange crop report. As the crop, Mr. Beeks is tweaking the orange crop report. And so we live in a seasonal world where you have farming, where you have a time to plant and a time to nurture and a time to harvest. and a time to, store. And that's been the circle of life on this planet for, as long as anyone possibly could ever remember. So seasonality, those analogies of orange crop or not, just examples of fishing and different things happen at different times. Even in my local, the same people that do my, the company that does my landscaping and my yard maintenance, they also do the snow removal. And so their business changes on the season. I always take a gamble in the winter. Last year I lost because we didn't have any snow, but I pay monthly for the snow. It was like snow insurance removal. It wasn't snow removal, it was snow insurance removal last year, which is fine. So seasonality works in your yard, but also works in the big markets too.
Very good. Great analogies. Now, you alluded to sector rotation. So
Yeah.
do the summer months behave differently in the summer? What is sector rotation?
Yeah, so I defer a lot to my team on this, Corey Halliday and especially Noah Davidson. And he and I just had a conversation about this because he is a very active trader. So I don't know if we'll have time in the first half of the show, but in the second half of the show, maybe we can contrast how I do it in the summer and how he does it. But he's a huge, he watches two things. He watches what we call seasonality, which we talked about and we'll continue to talk about. And then he talks about sector rotation because money doesn't necessarily leave the market. It can. There are people who are like, I'm going to flee stocks and I'm going to go to gold, or I'm going to flee gold and go to cash, or I'm going to, put money in crypto or whatever. So there's market rotation where money goes in different places of the market, but most of the time money stays in stocks. It just changes sectors. And so sector rotation is a really important thing, and it tends to march a little bit with seasonality because different sectors shine, and they're like the fishermen. They bring their money they have their big money and their big they can charge their high prices at certain times. So we have seen some sector rotation even recently in the market as we've moved into summer. So that's what sectors. Yeah, the S&P. I can't remember. I should know this. I haven't studied it in a long time. But the S&P has what we call sector representation. It really doesn't do as good a job as that as it used to because there's so much consolidation in the tech of AI. You got multi-trillion-dollar companies now that we never had, which they just make up such a big part of the S&P. It's hard. S&P used to be great at sector representation where you had some healthcare and some finance and some tech and some staples and some transport and some energy and some finance, all these different sectors. I want to say is there 12 or 13? I can't remember how many sectors there are anymore, but I can name them. I just can't count them. So there you go. But that's what sector rotation is, and it marches somewhat with seasons.
Okay, that's a great perspective. It helps us to understand what's going on in the summer. Now, I want to kind of reflect intrinsically a little bit and talk about what people experience during summer. More on the line of amateur versus professionals and habits and what we do day to day. And, the kids are out of school, our habits change a little bit. Some might slip a little bit. What's something that investors who want to be more professional should be aware of with their habits of trading and investing in education during the summer?
Well, that's kind of a different twist to it. I will, and we can talk more in the second half of the show about the actual sectors money's moving to right now. We'll revisit that, but yeah, let's digress into that a little bit into personal habits. So one of the people I talk about a lot is a mentor of mine because I think he's the best at it. His example is my friend Than Merrill. He has the ability to do things that are important but not urgent. Journal writing, exercise. These things are really important, but they're not banging down your door. I got to go lift some weights right now, right? It doesn't have that urgency of a message on your phone or an alert on your phone or something like that. And and the guys who are successful really find consistency despite the change. It's Jeff Bezos. How do you say his name? Is it Bezos or Bezos? I don't know how to say it.
I say Bezos. I'm Bezos. Right there. I have a little bit of doubt every time I say it. But
I have no idea. But Jeff Bezos said something that I believed for a lot of years, and I think he just said it really well. Someone said, hey, Jeff, what do you think the big changes are going to be? And he said, well, that's a great question. It'd be interesting to predict what changes, but maybe a more important question would be, what's not going to change? And then he said, you can build a business on things that are stable in time. And so the seasons are something you can count on, right? Time moving forward is something you can count on. Human nature is something you can absolutely count on. Government dysfunction is something you can count on. There's a lot of things that you can simply count on. So when the summer comes, we talk about the consistency in our family of what we want to do. And we're not perfect. We're not perfect. Generally, my wife and I try to have a meeting once a week. And sometimes we, stuff happens and we have to do it the next day or 2 days later. But it's really, really important to find consistency in your personal activities. Just because it's summer doesn't mean that you stop doing the things you're supposed to do as an investor. So I will still write my covered calls every month. I will still meet with my tax advisor quarterly, even though it's the summer. I don't take it off. We're still going to do our quarterly tax planning meeting. So those things are consistent in time. And those habits don't change. Even if it's time to go party. Later on today, I'm going to hop a flight and we're going to go play a basketball tournament in Phoenix. That doesn't mean I don't have any fun. My son will be a senior in high school. He wants to try to make his varsity basketball team, so he's going to go with the varsity team. We're going to go to Section 7 and have a ball. But that doesn't mean that we will forsake or supplant the consistent habits of investing. And, I'll still write my calls and write my puts and trade my options. And I'll do the same thing in the summer that I'll do the other times of the year. But other traders are going to change, as I said. They'll do some little bit more change than I will.
Well, let's do this. Let's take a break because I want to dig into that a little bit more. So, listeners, while most people are taking a break from thinking about money, smart investors are often using this time to sharpen their skills and prepare for what's next. So when we come back, Andy's going to share specific actions investors can take this summer to improve their portfolios, build their skills, and position themselves for a great second half. So, and don't forget, stockcastbonus.com. Download your free resources. This is where you start building an investing edge. Stick around. We'll be right back.
So far, it's been great. I needed a source where I could really enrich my education through stocks. I didn't really have an avenue for it, and it's helped me a lot. The simplicity has really gotten me on the track to where I enjoy the learning as well as it's really solidifying in my mind. And they're not just trying to sell you something. They really care about the people that are in the course, and they really do care about you and your personal goals, and what you want to do is to help you and your family and whatever your goals are in life through that. So it's really been great.
Welcome back to Rich Dad Stockcast. All right, Andy, let's get practical here. Let's you alluded to Corey and someone on your team that invest just slightly different. There's no right or wrong, ways to investing, right? As long as, I think Warren Buffett says you never go broke by taking profit, right? Let's talk about the difference between a couple of ideas of investing in the summer.
Yeah, well, first of all, like you said, when it comes to right and wrong, I love here's a little nugget from Robert. I don't know. I think these nuggets are big things, maybe not even nuggets, but one of the things he said to me many, many years ago, he said, I don't have a right foot and a left foot, or a right foot and a wrong foot. I have a right foot and a left foot. I don't have a right hand and a wrong hand. I have a right and a left. And what that means is that different doesn't mean wrong, even though it might feel different. If I were to take my dominant hand, I'm right-handed, and I were to move my pen to this hand and write my name, it would be awkward but not wrong. Would be awkward but not wrong. My sons are both, my older son's hopelessly left-handed, And then my younger son is what Rick Majerus would have said, amphibious. He can shoot on the water or the land. But he's ambidextrous. Majerus couldn't say ambidextrous; he'd say amphibious, But he can do things with both hands. So as investors, you find a couple of things. Number one, your style should be dictated by at least two things. Number one, your needs. If I look at an investment and it can't get me where I want to go, I'm not going to get in that car. That's the problem with 401k, by the way. Everyone gets put in a 401k, and it's like driving a bicycle. So if you want to go to Hawaii, that bicycle ain't going to get you there. You got to get off that bike. You got to get on something else. You got to get on an airplane. You got to go faster. People who are further along in age, and they look at that thing like, okay, the status quo is not getting there. I'm behind now. I need a jetpack. So the goal that you have when you play the cash flow game, you begin with your dream. And if the investment vehicle doesn't have the horsepower to get you to your dream, you got to get a different vehicle, and more horsepower means more risk, which means more education, more knowledge, more experience. So the first thing would be, what's your goal? The second thing that would determine this is, what are your strengths and what is your style? And you can usually find a place where both of those meet. I very much love to invest and then trade options on the top of my investments. I don't buy and sell a lot of stocks because when I buy a stock, I'm an owner of a company. Hopefully I'll hold it forever. Just like real estate. I never buy real estate to flip it. If I buy some real estate, I'm adding that to planting my flag, and that's in the Tanner family trust for eternity. If I can, it's like Monopoly. I'm not selling stuff. But options expire. So I'm an option trader all the time. I have to be because they expire. You got to get done whatever they're going to do. Well, Noah and Corey, they probably trade a little more stock than I do. Noah does for sure. And so for someone like that, the summer is a big deal because just as I mentioned, the fishermen, the fish are going to come in a certain time of year. The orange crop's going to come in a certain time of year. He is going to take advantage of both seasonality and sector rotation. We can talk about some of where the money's moving right now. The money moving right now, there's some profit taking in the tech short term. I think it'll revisit that. But if tech and IEI is still going to boom, why would people even pull money out of that for a minute? Well, because there's opportunity other places seasonally. So, I can take you through. I mean, he'll tell you about 4 different, seasons, and we could go through that in detail if we want.
Yeah, can we do it? Because I think when we say sector rotation, like, how does it match the calendar?
Well, historically, June is a little bit rougher month. Just you can go back and you can look at the S&P 500 on months historically where it's done well and does less well, and June is a slower month. You can overlay that, and that's not a guarantee. It's like the almanac, right? The old farmer's almanac. You say, well, what happens? When should you start planning this year? And that is neither here nor there. But for example, in the first quarter, companies tend to say, all right, what are we going to build? Let's get some raw materials. And so raw materials are going to be sold just like the fishermen can't catch their fish. In the second quarter, we're going to start to build stuff. So manufacturing might see a bit of a bump. In the summer, where we get into the dog days of summer, you've watched railroads where we are now. You'll see railroads get more business. And so people start getting excited about the numbers coming out in the railroads. The railroads are going to better buy some now. So, I get these profits in the following quarter. And then in the final quarter of the year, all this stuff gets shipped, and now it's time for consumers to buy it. And so you'll see late. You want to own it during the Santa Claus rally because it's a forward-thinking instrument. And so, you want to take advantage of all that online shopping that's going to happen in December in that fourth quarter, so you can see those profits pop when they get reported in the next, quarter of the next year, and you're happy that you were there. So, staples, building it, shipping it, and then the consumer buying it might be a nice, oversimplified bird's eye view. But if you look at the S&P, maybe some money is rotating out of tech, out of healthcare and into railroad to ship. And of course, Buffett sits there and he owns Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and 40% of the nation's freight is railroad in North America. 40%. And Berkshire Hathaway they're the biggest one. It would take, Buffett said it'd take about 20, 30 years easily, and probably half $500 billion to take down that moat, to say, oh, we're going to be a competitor now with Burlington. No one's going to do that. No one's going to invest that kind of money because they want to go AI. They want to do other things that are faster. They don't want to wait a 20-year investment. So, and yet, since he already owns that, if you want to be a real estate guy, where's your lumber and steel? Where's your shingles? Where's that stuff going to come from? What's going to come from the rail? So when people say, I get a little tired of, a house I can see, touch, and feel it. All right, stand in the middle of a railroad track. You'll see, touch, and feel that too. You'll see it, you'll hear it, and you'll really feel it for half a second. It's as real as anything. It's got mass to it. Trust me, you can feel it. And stand there. Just stand there and see if you feel you should move or not. That's a very viable business. You want food? Those grains come on rail. So yeah, right now that's where a little bit of money's moving, is into that, and the investors are gonna watch it and try to take advantage, especially the technical analysts, as they watch the charts move.
I love this idea of sector rotation and how it matches the calendar, and it's good to know the lay of the land. Now, coming back to the investor, what is something that someone could do this summer to be more productive? Like, what's one action they could take to become more financially productive over the summer?
Well, some people, my father was a school teacher, and so the summer was a time where he didn't have to do much, and he could do something if he wanted. Both my sons, they amp up their athletic stuff in the summer because they don't have not school to bother them. But one of the interesting things that both my kids did is they would find things to study over the summer, even though they weren't in school. They didn't look at it as a break. They looked at transition. For example, they'll pick a book. Right now, my older son is reading a book on athleticism called Ballistic. It's about ballistic movements and jumping higher and being quicker. My other son's reading a book by Jay Billis. I don't mind giving him a shout out, Toughness by Jay Billis. One of the best books ever written is Toughness by Jay. It's fantastic. My wife and I have done encore reading on that, meaning we've read it more than one time. So we will pick activities. If you're in a situation the summer is different for you, then plan your summer. And one of the great things you could do, always, any quarter of the year, is say, hey, this is a great time to learn. A great time to learn. So this is a great market to learn from, because you've got some energy stuff, you've got oil kind of all over the place, you still have an Iran conflict, you have political stuff. It's a great market to learn from. And so obviously learning, and that's why we send people to stockcastbonus.com. It's an opportunity to learn. Read that ebook, start that habit. Every January 1st is an opportunity to start a new clock. Well, every quarter is another opportunity. Hey, when did you really get going? I was watching Denney, and he asked Andy a few questions. I thought, this summer's going to be the time where I really rock and roll. I'm going to make the most of this summer. So it just depends on what your life is like. Some people, it doesn't matter. Other people, it matters a lot if you're in seasonal work. So it comes back to what I said about my friend Than Merrill. Find the things that are important and not urgent. Breathing is both urgent and important. This is from Stephen Covey. First things first. Breathing is important and urgent. If you stop breathing, you'll feel it's important. You'll feel its urgency. That's not where success is. Everyone does the things that are urgent and important. It's the things that are not urgent that are important that people don't do. They do a lot of things that are urgent and not important. They do a lot of things that are neither urgent nor important. But to do the things that are important but don't feel urgent, that's where success lies. So if you have a chance in the summer to prioritize some of those things, you're not just going to have a great summer, you're going to have a great life.
That's fantastic. That is a great note to end on right there. That's a great sound bit.
Well, we'll end on it then.
We'll end on that. Listeners, the best investors understand that success isn't built during moments of excitement. It's built during moments of preparation, just like Andy said. And while everyone else is taking breaks, you have an opportunity to build knowledge, to improve your systems and position yourself for the future. Big thank you to Andy Tanner, as always, for sharing these insights with us. And listener, if you're ready to make the summer count as an investor, head over to stockcastbonus.com right now. You'll find free tools and resources designed to help you to build confidence and invest smarter. And if this episode has helped you, if it's given you value, make sure you like it, subscribe, share it with someone who wants to make the most of their second half of the year. You're not here by accident. You're building something that most people won't. So stay smart, stay invested, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.